Hey everyone! Tonight, we are drifting into a quieter chapter of medieval life. Not the wars, not the kings, not the sweeping plagues, but something far more fragile and far more human. The kind that survives winters when the grain bins stand empty, the kind whispered over cracked hands and weary bones, the kind found in embers that refuse to die even when the night grows unbearably cold. Imagine waking before dawn in a one-room hut, your breath rising in pale clouds above a dying fire, your stomach hollow from yesterday's hunger, and still feeling a small, stubborn promise inside you. A spark, a flicker, a reason to rise anyway. Imagine sharing a crust of bread in silence, not because there is nothing to say, but because the quiet itself feels sacred. A moment where the family remembers they're still together, still here, still trying. Imagine stepping into a village wrapped in mist, where neighbors exchange nods not of joy, but of understanding. A silent pact that every hardship is lighter when carried side by side. And imagine the old church door creaking open, letting out a breath of incense and warm candlelight. A soft glow that makes the whole world outside feel less bitter, less frightening, less alone. This is not the medieval history found in heroic tales. It's the history of people who survived famine with faith, survived fear with rituals, survived heartbreak with stories whispered by firelight. People who discovered that hope was not loud. It was quiet, steady, and unbelievably resilient. Before we set off, if you enjoy these quiet dives into history, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely do. Tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always a small wonder to see this sleepy audience scattered across the map. Now, lie back, breathe slowly. Let the mist settle around the village. Let the church bell echo softly across the fields. And let the night draw close, because we're about to drift into a world where hope survived against every odd. Part 1. Morning light in a difficult world. A subtle chill, an old acquaintance, nudged you awake from the straw bed. It wasn't the jarring clang of a modern alarm, but the insidious seep of cold that permeated every fiber of the small, mud-daubed hut, through the thin mat of reeds and into your very bones. You stirred, feeling the dry, brittle stalks of straw poke and prod beneath your worn woolen tunic. Your breath, when it escaped your lips, misted the dim room, a visible cloud in the lingering darkness. The sun, a distant, unseen promise, was still hours from its ascent, yet hope flickered like the ember in the hearth. A tiny, tenacious spark against the overwhelming cold. A silent defiance in the face of relentless medieval hardship. Imagine the rough texture of the straw against your cheek, its familiar scratch, a constant companion to your rest. This was your bed, a communal pallet shared with your family, its layers of hay and chaff providing a meager buffer against the frozen ground. Sleep, when it came, was a heavy, dreamless descent into utter exhaustion, a temporary surrender to a body perpetually pushed to its limits by ceaseless toil. Now, as consciousness slowly returned, the world pressed in with its inescapable realities. The persistent ache in your muscles, the stiffness in your joints, the subtle gnawing of hunger in your belly, already asserting its presence. Inside the hut, the air hung heavy and still, thick with the earthy scent of damp mud brick, lingering wood smoke from the banked hearth, and the subtle musky aroma of animal hides from the nearby byre. This intimate perfume of home, however humble, however pungent, served as a fragile bastion against the immense, hostile world outside. The windows, if any, were shuttered tight, but the cold crept in through every crack in the wattle and daub walls, through gaps in the thatched roof, a silent, relentless invasion. Listen to the soft rustle of straw as your family stirred around you. Your husband, his face a shadowed mask of weariness. Children, small bundles wrapped in coarse wool, their breathing soft and rhythmic. The distant lowing of a cow, or the bleating of a sheep. Housed in an adjacent byre within the hut was a constant, comforting reminder of their vital presence, their shared warmth contributing to the fragile internal microclimate, a crucial aid against the biting chill. The cold within the room was pervasive, clinging to everything. Your breath, visible in the dim light, mingled with the last wisps of smoke from the banked hearth, creating a hazy, ethereal atmosphere. This was a cold that bit deep, penetrating through layers of worn wool and patched hides, settling into your very bones, making every movement a conscious act of will, every muscle protesting its insidious grip. To rise was a physical protest. Your feet, bare and numb, met the cold, damp earth floor, sending a sharp jolt through your body. The rough linen tunic, worn for days, felt coarse against your skin, its fibers already absorbing the pervasive cold. There were no hot baths, no soft towels, no quick comforts to ease the transition from sleep to wakefulness. Only the raw, unyielding reality of a life lived in constant negotiation with the elements. Yet hope flickered like the ember in the hearth. Despite the overwhelming hardships, the deep-seated human capacity for hope was never fully extinguished. It was a fragile, tenacious spark, nurtured in the quiet moments of the pre-dawn, drawing strength from the lingering warmth of the banked fire, from the shared presence of family, from the unwavering belief that another day, however difficult, was another chance for survival, another step closer to spring. This quiet, persistent hope was an invisible shield, protecting the spirit from the despair that constantly threatened to overwhelm. You rise before sunrise, breath fogging in the dim hut, yet hope flickers like the ember in the hearth. Waking to hardship was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a chilling reminder that one day in the Middle Ages would be a total nightmare. It was a calm, immersive journey into a world ruled by land, weather, and lords, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to defy the cold, one fragile breath, one flickering ember at a time. The little rituals of breakfast, having risen from the straw bed, your breath still fogging the dim, cold air of the hut. The next daily act was not merely about sustenance, but about quiet fortitude. A poor man's breakfast, simple and rough, became a focal point for resilience. A crust of bread, a whispered prayer, and the warmth of shared silence hold the family together, transforming meager fare into a profound ritual of connection, a subtle act of faith that nourished the spirit as much as the body, defying the pervasive hunger and cold of a difficult world. Imagine the rough texture of the yesterday's bread in your hand, its crust hard, its interior dense and coarse, reflecting the humble grains from which it was painstakingly made. The air inside the cramped hut, thick with wood smoke and damp earth, was subtly permeated by the faint, girthy aroma of this simple loaf. It was a stark reminder of scarcity, yet also a tangible promise of sustenance, however fleeting. For the medieval peasant, a varied diet was a luxury. Breakfast typically consisted of coarse, stale bread, perhaps a day old, often dipped in thin, weak ale or water. This was not a meal to savor, but to consume with grim determination, a utilitarian act to fuel a day of arduous labor. Yet, within its stark simplicity, profound meaning was found. Listen to the rhythmic crunch of hard bread as it was slowly, deliberately chewed, the sounds of consumption muted by the quiet reverence of the moment. Hear the low murmur of a whispered prayer, offered by the head of the household, or silently by each family member before the first bite. See the faces of your family, pale and drawn with weariness, gathered close around the rekindled, struggling fire, their eyes fixed on the precious bread, reflecting a shared understanding of its sacred value. A crust of bread, a whispered prayer, and the warmth of shared silence hold the family together. The bread, laboriously produced, was a gift from God and the land, not to be taken lightly. The whispered prayer, often a simple blessing or a plea for sustenance, consecrated the meal, infusing it with spiritual significance. It acknowledged their dependence on divine mercy, a fragile shield against famine and despair. The warmth of shared silence, meanwhile, was a profound, unspoken comfort. In a world of constant struggle, this quiet moment of communal presence, their bodies pressed close around the flickering fire, offered emotional nourishment. It was a time to silently acknowledge their shared hardship, to draw strength from each other, to reaffirm the unbreakable bonds of family. The ale, thin and cold, provided a few precious calories, and crucially, was safer to drink than untreated water. Its bitterness was familiar, its warmth negligible, yet its presence was a small, consistent part of the ritual, easing the dry bread down. The psychological impact was immense. Though never enough to truly silence the hunger, this ritualized breakfast provided a vital anchor. It fostered a sense of continuity, of order, of collective purpose, transforming profound hunger into a shared act of faith and resilience. It was a daily testament to their unwavering will to defy the hardships that defined their lives. Its story, baked into every crust, whispered of enduring hope. The little rituals of breakfast were a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One whispered prayer, one shared silence at a time. The hearth as guardian. With the last crumb of blessed bread consumed, and the cold still clinging to every corner of the hut, the struggle for warmth, a ceaseless battle in the medieval winter, centered on a single flickering beacon. The hearth as guardian was more than a mere fire. It was the sacred, pulsating heart of the home. The fire smokes and sputters, but its glow anchors the home through every storm, transforming a dangerous element into a profound symbol of life, warmth, and unshakable security, providing a tangible bulwark against the terrifying darkness and the relentless forces that threatened to engulf their fragile existence. Imagine the air inside the cramped, mud-daubed dwelling, thick with the pungent aroma of wood smoke, mingling with the earthy scent of damp straw, animal hides, and the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the low murmur of prayer. They included the rhythmic crackle and pop of burning fuel, the contented hiss of melting snow near the flames, and the hushed murmurs of a family huddled close. Wool cloaks drying by smoky hearths, gently illuminated by its faint glow, became the heart of their fragile sanctuary. The central hearth, typically a simple, cleared patch of earth or stone, was the undisputed focal point of the peasant's hut. It had no chimney in the modern sense. Smoke would drift upwards, curling around the soot-stained beams, eventually finding its way out through a smoke hole in the roof or through gaps in the thatch. This made the air perpetually smoky, often stinging the eyes and lungs, but it also distributed heat more evenly throughout the single room. Listen to the rhythmic crackle and pop of the burning fuel, a constant comforting symphony against the profound silence of the frozen night. Hear the contented sizzle of thin pottage, simmering in a heavy iron cauldron suspended over the flames, its rich, earthy aroma filling the cottage, promising strength and sustenance. See the dancing flames, their orange and red hues pushing back the encroaching darkness, illuminating the rough walls, transforming simple mud brick into a canvas of shifting shadows. The fire smokes and sputters, but its glow anchors the home through every storm. Fuel, whether scraps of wood, gathered peat, or dried animal dung, was precious and constantly scarce in winter. The fire was meticulously managed, often kept to a low, smoldering glow throughout the night, its embers carefully banked with ash. It would smoke and sputter, its flames hesitant, but its persistent glow was a constant, visible anchor. It provided warmth, cooked food, offered light against the terrifying darkness, and crucially, deterred wild animals and unseen malevolent spirits. This enduring glow, however minimal, was a powerful psychological comfort. It was a tangible sign that the cold had not entirely won, that a precious spark of warmth and life persisted in the profound darkness. It defied the terrifying blizzards, the howling winds, and the crushing weight of snow that might envelop the cottage, providing a sense of security against forces they could not control. The warmth that emanated from the hearth, however struggling, was the central reason for its existence. It allowed bodies to thaw, to recover from the pervasive chill, to find moments of precious rest. It allowed families to gather, to share stories, to reinforce the bonds that held them together against overwhelming hardship. Its story, written in every dancing flame, whispered of unwavering protection. The hearth as guardian was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure, one flickering glow, one smoky breath at a time. The walk through the village. After the meager breakfast and the internal battles with the cold, the demands of the day inevitably pulled you beyond the fragile warmth of your hut. The walk through the village was not a journey of cheerful camaraderie, but a silent, pervasive declaration of shared struggle. Neighbors greet you not with joy, but solidarity, a quiet understanding that everyone struggles, transforming a simple daily commute into a profound act of communal acknowledgement, underscoring the deep, often unspoken, bonds forged in the crucible of medieval hardship. Imagine the air, crisp and biting, thick with the earthy scent of damp mud, melting frost, and the pervasive aroma of wood smoke from countless chimneys mingling with the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the rhythmic crackle of your hearth. They included the squelch of boots in thick mud, the muffled lowing of distant cattle, and the soft crunch of frost underfoot. Muddy tracks, glistening under the pale dawn, wound through a village still emerging from winter's grip. The unpaved streets and paths of the medieval village were perpetually exposed to the elements. Rain, melting snow, and animal waste combined to create ubiquitous, tenacious mud. In winter and early spring, these paths transformed into veritable rivers of grime, making every journey, however short, an arduous and unpleasant task. Frost clung to timber-bird walls, silently proclaiming the cold's enduring presence. Listen to the distinct, squelching sound as your crude, straw-stuffed boots sink into the thick, cold mud, its viscous embrace pulling at your feet with every laborious step. Hear the muffled lowing of cattle from communal pens, the distant bleating of sheep, the frantic clucking of scattering chickens. See the figures of other peasants, their forms hunched against the cold, their clothes dull with grime, their boots equally caked in mud, moving with grim determination towards their own morning tasks. Neighbors greet you not with joy, but solidarity, a quiet understanding that everyone struggles. Verbal greetings were often curt, nonverbal a simple nod, a shared glance of grim understanding, for words felt superfluous in the face of such overwhelming daily struggle. There was no need for elaborate pleasantries. The harsh realities of their lives, the gnawing hunger, the pervasive cold, the relentless toil were universally understood. This shared experience forged a deep sense of solidarity, a quiet recognition of their common lot. The walk was permeated by this unspoken understanding. Each villager, battling their own personal discomforts and anxieties, moved with a silent, collective purpose. Their struggle was individual, yet profoundly communal, woven into the very fabric of their interconnected lives. The mud on their boots, the cold in their bones, the weariness in their eyes, these were shared badges of survival. The psychological impact was immense. This daily encounter, however brief, provided a crucial anchor against isolation. It fostered a sense of belonging, a profound antidote to the despair that winter could bring. To know that you were not alone in your suffering, that your neighbors faced the same relentless hardships, provided a quiet strength, a subtle reassurance. Its story, written in every muddy footprint, whispered of profound connection. The walk through the village was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure, one shared nod, one muddy step at a time. Part 2. Labor, Obligation, and Endless Toil. With the last echoes of the church bell fading from the cold morning air, and the spiritual warmth of prayer a fleeting memory, the brutal, unyielding reality of peasant existence reasserted itself. Labor under gray skies was a constant, arduous duty. The soil is stubborn, the wind cruel, but each seed planted is an act of defiance against despair, transforming relentless toil into a profound declaration of hope, a chilling testament to humanity's unwavering will to survive, even when the very elements conspire against them. Imagine the air, sharp and biting, thick with the earthy scent of damp, frozen soil, horse manure, and the pervasive aroma of human effort. The sounds were no longer the solemn chanting of priests. They included the rhythmic creak of plows, the lowing of straining oxen, the shouts of overseers, and the muffled grunts of countless laborers. Mist drifting over fields at dawn, barely lifting, revealed rows of bent figures, merging with the gray landscape under a vast, unblinking sky. The vast, open fields surrounding the village were the very heart of medieval agrarian life. These lands, however, were not entirely your own. As a serf, you were bound to the manor and a significant portion of its most fertile land, the lord's domain, had to be worked first, diligently, and without complaint, before you could even turn to your own meager strips. This was the corvée, the forced labor owed to your master, the non-negotiable bedrock of the feudal system. Listen to the rhythmic creak of the wooden plow, groaning as it cut through the stubborn, damp earth, turning over shallow furrows. Hear the low, strained lowing of the oxen, their powerful bodies straining against their yokes, their breath pluming white in the cold air. See the long, dark lines of newly turned earth stretching behind you, a testament to your relentless, back-breaking toil, slowly transforming the field into a ready canvas for cultivation. The soil is stubborn, the wind cruel, but each seed planted is an act of defiance against despair. The earth, cold and tenacious from winter's grip, resisted the plow, its clods heavy and unyielding. The wind, cruel and ceaseless, swept across the open fields, biting at exposed skin, tearing at coarse woolen clothing. Yet despite these relentless adversaries, the work continued. Each precious seed, painstakingly scattered into the cold, damp earth, was a profound act of hope, a desperate gamble on a future harvest, a silent defiance against the overwhelming despair that threatened to consume them. This was a profound psychological burden. To toil so tirelessly, to expend such immense energy, yet to know that the primary beneficiary was not your starving family, but your distant lord, bred a deep sense of powerlessness, a quiet despair. But the act of planting, the commitment to a future harvest, kept hope alive. The overseer, often the lord's reeve, would patrol the fields on horseback, his gaze sharp, his staff or whip a visible reminder of his authority. His presence ensured that the work was done with maximum efficiency, that no one slacked, that every ounce of peasant sweat served the Lord's needs before their own. Its story, written in every planted seed, whispered of profound resilience. Labor under gray skies was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure, one hopeful seed, one arduous furrow at a time. Mending with patience. Beyond the bone-chilling toil of the fields and the relentless demands of the unforgiving soil, another ceaseless battle against decay and scarcity unfolded within the peasant's hut. Mending with patience was a pervasive, unyielding duty. Clothes, tools, roofs, everything must be repaired endlessly. But each stitch is a promise of tomorrow, transforming humble repairs into a profound act of hope, a chilling testament to human ingenuity, and the unwavering will to preserve what little they possessed against the relentless ravages of time and wear. Imagine the air inside the cramped, mud-daubed hut, thick with wood smoke, damp earth, and the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by the soft aroma of worn wool and old leather. The sounds were no longer the rhythmic creak of plows. They included the gentle rustle of coarse fabric, the rhythmic tap of a hammer on warm wood, and the soft scrape of a needle. Wool cloaks drying by smoky hearths, gently illuminated by its flickering glow, revealed a quiet scene of meticulous repair. In medieval peasant life, possessions were few and precious. A single set of clothes, a handful of rudimentary tools, the very roof over their heads. These were essential for survival. There was no disposable culture. Everything had to be maintained, repaired, and repurposed until it utterly disintegrated. Listen to the soft rustle of coarse wool as a worn tunic was laid across a knee, its threadbare patches revealing countless previous repairs. Hear the rhythmic tap of a small hammer, gently reshaping a bent iron hoe blade or securing a loose roof timber. See the needle, a precious piece of iron or bone, deftly guided by calloused fingers, pushing coarse thread through layers of fabric, binding tears, reinforcing worn seams. Clothes, tools, roofs, everything must be repaired endlessly, but each stitch is a promise of tomorrow. Clothes perpetually exposed to dirt, sweat, and the rigors of manual labor, tore, frayed, and wore thin. Tools, crucial for working the land, broke, bent, or dulled. The thatched or sawed roof, perpetually vulnerable to wind, rain, and snow, leaked and sagged. The endless cycle of repair was a fundamental part of daily life, a constant battle against decay. Each stitch is a promise of tomorrow. Every patch, every mend, every careful repair was a profound act of hope. It was a declaration that they believed in a future, that their efforts today would ensure their survival tomorrow. The new thread binding old fabric was a tangible symbol of continuity, a small, defiant act against the relentless forces of time and scarcity. The psychological impact was immense. The monotonous repetition of mending, the painstaking patience required, the knowledge that their efforts were a continuous, never-ending struggle, these could erode mental fortitude. But it also fostered a deep connection to their possessions, a profound sense of pride in their craftsmanship, and an unwavering commitment to self-reliance. The cold, the pervasive dampness, the constant hunger, these hardships amplified the physical toll. Hands, stiff with cold, worked meticulously, their movements precise, their focus absolute. Its story, written in every careful patch, whispered of enduring hope. Mending with patience was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One careful stitch, one patched roof at a time. The songs of the workshop. Beyond the endless mending and the strenuous toil in the fields, medieval life also found rhythm and solace in the meticulous crafts that sustained the community. The songs of the workshop were a profound, vibrant reality. Hammering, weaving, carving, work becomes rhythm, and rhythm becomes comfort, transforming arduous labor into a meditative, communal experience, imbuing repetitive tasks with a profound sense of purpose, and providing a vital psychological anchor in a world defined by constant struggle and pervasive scarcity. Imagine the air inside a humble workshop, perhaps a blacksmith's smithy, a weaver's shed, or a potter's corner thick, with the mingled scents of hot iron, damp clay, raw wool, and the subtle tang of human presence. The sounds were no longer the mournful creak of plows. They included the rhythmic clang of hammer on anvil, the soft thump of a loom, the gentle scrape of a carving tool, and the low hum of voices often raised in song. Soft footsteps on dirt floors, moving in unison with the work, underscored the deep connection between body and craft. Craftsmen, whether blacksmiths, weavers, potters, or carpenters, were indispensable figures in medieval society. Their skills transformed raw materials into essential tools, clothing, vessels, and structures, contributing vital resources to the village economy. Their work was physically demanding, often solitary, yet deeply purposeful. Listen to the rhythmic clang of hammer on anvil, a powerful, insistent beat that resonated through the smithy, shaping stubborn iron into essential tools. Hear the soft, repetitive thump of the loom as a weaver's shuttle flew back and forth, slowly transforming raw wool into precious cloth. See the hands, calloused and skilled, meticulously shaping clay on a potter's wheel, or carving intricate designs into wood with sharp tools. Hammering, weaving, carving. Work becomes rhythm, and rhythm becomes comfort. The repetitive physical nature of these crafts naturally lent itself to rhythm. This rhythm was not just mechanical. It was internal, meditative, often accompanied by song or chant. The consistent beat of the hammer, the steady thump of the loom, the flowing motion of the carving tool, these created a predictable, comforting pulse that guided the labor. This rhythm, in turn, became a profound source of comfort. It allowed the mind to settle, to focus, to find a sense of order amidst the chaos of daily life. The physical act, performed in unison with others, or with an internal cadence, created a sense of purpose, a flow state that transcended mere drudgery. Songs, often ancient folk melodies or simple chants, would accompany the work, further enhancing this rhythmic comfort, turning individual toil into a shared, almost spiritual, experience. The psychological impact was immense. These communal rhythms, these shared sounds of purposeful labor, provided a crucial anchor against despair. They fostered a sense of collective identity, a profound antidote to the isolation and fear that defined much of medieval existence. To know that others, too, were engaged in similar rhythmic toil created a sense of solidarity. The cold, the pervasive mud, the constant hunger, these hardships amplified the physical toll. But the rhythm of the work, the comfort of the song, provided a mental and emotional shield, allowing them to endure. Its story, sung in every rhythmic beat, whispered of profound solace. The songs of the workshop were a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One rhythmic hammer blow, one woven thread, one carved line at a time. Watching the flock. Watching the flock was a pervasive, watchful duty. The fields are lonely, but the animals depend on you, giving purpose in the stillness, transforming a pastoral chore into a constant solitary vigil against predators, thieves, and the overwhelming isolation of the open land, intensifying the pervasive fear of loss that defined their precarious existence. Imagine the air, crisp and biting, thick with the earthy scent of sheep, damp grass, and the subtle tang of wild forest, mingling with the pervasive aroma of wood smoke from distant huts. The sounds were no longer the rhythmic clang of hammers. They included the constant bleating of sheep, the lowing of goats, the distant howl of a wolf, and the sharp bark of your vigilant dog. Mist drifting over fields at dawn, barely lifting, revealed the vast, open plains, stretching to the menacing dark of the forest. Your family's small herd, perhaps a few sheep for wool and occasional meat, a goat for milk, or a scrawny cow for milk and labor, represented a significant portion of your precarious wealth. Protecting them was paramount, a sacred duty that often took you to the lonely periphery of the known world, far from the immediate comfort of human company. Listen to the constant bleating of the sheep, their soft, nervous murmurs, their rhythmic chewing of sparse grass. Hear the distant, mournful cry of a jackal from the dry hills, or the chilling howl of a wolf carried on the wind, instantly raising your hackles, sharpening your senses. See the vast, open plains stretching to the horizon, dotted with the moving forms of your flock, a small, vulnerable island of life near the menacing dark of the forest. The fields are lonely, but the animals depend on you, giving purpose in the stillness. The shepherd's vigil was a solitary one, often performed alone for hours or even days, far removed from the comforting sounds and communal life of the village. The vastness of the steppe, the profound silence of the wilderness, amplified the sense of isolation, making the world feel immense and indifferent. Yet this solitude was imbued with profound purpose. The animals depended on you for their protection, for their survival, for their very lives. This responsibility gave meaning to the stillness, transforming loneliness into a focused, essential duty. The dangers were manifold. Predators, wolves, bears, and human thieves were ever present and cunning, their hunger sharpened by the lean seasons. A moment of inattention, a lapse in vigilance, could result in a devastating loss, a direct threat to your family's survival. Your loyal dog, its senses far superior to your own, was a crucial partner in this ceaseless watch. The cold of winter, the pervasive dampness, the constant hunger, these hardships amplified the physical and psychological toll. Your body ached, your mind was weary, but your focus remained absolute. The protection of your precious flock, the very lifeline of your family. Its story, sung in every quiet watch, whispered of profound responsibility. Watching the flock was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure, one watchful gaze, one bleeding sheep at a time. The turn of the mill wheel. The turn of the mill wheel was a constant, reassuring sound, a powerful declaration of life as enduring rhythm. The steady grind of grain is the heartbeat of the village, a reminder that life continues, transforming raw produce into life-sustaining flour and underscoring the profound, unwavering resilience of a community perpetually bound by labor, obligation, and the unyielding cycles of nature. Imagine the air inside the mill, thick with the fine dust of ground flour, mingled with the earthy scent of damp wood, cold river water, and the subtle tone of human presence. The sounds were no longer the bleating of sheep. They included the rhythmic creak and splash of the water wheel, the deep, resonant rumble of millstones, and the low murmur of anxious peasants. Cold river water reflecting gray skies, now churning, powered the incessant rhythm. The village mill, typically located on the banks of a river or stream, was an indispensable engine of medieval survival. Its massive wooden water wheel, harnessing the power of flowing water, turned heavy grindstones, which meticulously processed the painstakingly harvested grain into flour, the very staff of life essential for making bread and brewing ale. This was a communal asset, its uninterrupted operation vital for the entire town's sustenance. Listen to the rhythmic creak and splash of the wooden water wheel, a constant, insistent sound that vibrated through the very timbers of the mill, a powerful counterpoint to the relentless flow of the river. Hear the deep, resonant rumble of the massive millstones, grinding slowly, inexorably, reducing tough kernels to coarse flour. See the miller, a burly figure, his face and clothes perpetually dusted with white flour, his eyes sharp and watchful, overseeing each sack. The steady grind of grain is the heartbeat of the village, a reminder that life continues. Your precious sacks of barley, rye, or oats, painstakingly cultivated and harvested, would be brought to the mill. The miller, a powerful and often resented figure in the village economy, bore the responsibility of transforming your raw grain into usable flour. His services, however, came at a price, the miller's toll, a specific portion of the milled grain, which he was legally entitled to take as payment for his labor and the use of his mill. This toll, often a tenth or more, was taken directly from your hard-won harvest before you received your own share. It was a primary feudal obligation, a constant reminder of your economic dependence on the lord, who usually owned the mill and his designated miller. The calculation was grim. What little you had, already diminished by the lord's taxes and the church's tithes, would shrink further still. The psychological impact was immense. The constant awareness of this relentless extraction, the knowledge that much of their hard-won labor would be taken away, bred a profound sense of powerlessness, a quiet despair. But the steady, enduring rhythm of the mill, its ceaseless turning, provided a crucial anchor against despair. It was a tangible affirmation that life, however hard, however cold, continued. Its story, written in every grinding creak, whispered of profound resilience. The turn of the mill wheel was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One rhythmic grind, one precious sack of flour at a time. Part 3. Power, Danger, and the Unseen Rules. Beyond the communal toil of fields and mills, beyond the immediate rhythms of daily survival, lay the pervasive absolute power of your feudal overlord. Owing to the manor was not merely a physical gesture, but an act of profound daily submission. Your lord rides by in polished armor while you kneel in mud. Your life is tied to his land and his whims, transforming a simple encounter into a chilling declaration of rigid social hierarchy, intensifying the constant fear of arbitrary command, and perpetually reminding you of your utter powerlessness beneath his shadow. Imagine the air, thick with the subtle scent of damp earth, horse manure, and the pervasive aroma of human apprehension, now mingled with the sharp tang of polished steel and expensive leather. The sounds were no longer the low murmur of resigned peasants. They included the rhythmic clang of distant hooves, the rich jingle of harness, and the authoritative shouts of the lord's retinue. Mist drifting over fields at dawn, barely lifting, revealed the formidable stone manor, looming like a silent, unyielding giant. The lord's manor, typically a fortified stone castle or a grand timber hall, stood apart from the peasant village, a visual declaration of immense power and privilege. It was the administrative and military heart of the feudal estate, the seat of his authority over all the land, its resources, and all who lived upon it. For the peasant, the manor was both a source of fragile protection and a profound wellspring of fear, its presence omnipresent. Listen to the rhythmic clang of distant hooves, growing steadily louder, announcing the lord's approach. Hear the rich jingle of his horse's elaborate harness, the creak of fine leather, the murmur of his retinue, their voices carrying an air of authority. See the lord, a formidable figure, mounted on a powerful war horse, clad in gleaming, polished armor, his banner snapping defiantly, his gaze sweeping over the prostrate figures in the field. Your lord rides by in polished armor while you kneel in mud. This was the core of the encounter. As the lord or his representative rode through his lands, a peasant was expected to immediately cease work, dismount, if on horseback, and kneel in profound deference. Your crude, mud-stained clothes, your dirt-encrusted hands, your bowed head were a stark, visual counterpoint to his gleaming armor, his powerful steed, his elevated status. The mud, thick and cloying, clung to your knees, staining your clothes, a constant reminder of your peasant status, your deep connection to the earth. To fail to kneel, to hesitate, to meet his gaze directly, these were acts of profound disrespect, a blatant challenge to his authority that could invite swift and brutal retribution. Fines, whipping, or even the loss of your meager plot. Your life is tied to his land and his whims. This was the chilling truth. As a serf, your very existence was bound to his manor. Your labor, Your crops, your animals, your family, and your meager freedoms were ultimately at his whim. A new tax, an arbitrary demand for labor, a sudden decree, these could profoundly alter your life, and you had no recourse, no power to resist. The psychological impact was immense. The constant awareness of this pervasive power, the knowledge that your future was entirely at the whim of another, eroded mental fortitude. It bred a profound sense of powerlessness, a quiet despair that shaped every decision, every interaction. Its story, written in every bowed head, whispered of endless subservience. Owing to the matter was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One knelt moment, one arbitrary command at a time. The sheriff justice. Beyond the daily acts of obeisance to the feudal lord, medieval village life was governed by a harsh, often arbitrary, system of law enforcement. The sheriff's justice was a chilling, pervasive reality. Punishment is swift and public. The law is not to protect you, it is to control you, transforming every transgression into a brutal spectacle of power, ensuring conformity through fear, and leaving an indelible mark on both the condemned and the community that watched, perpetually reinforcing the strict, unwritten laws of their land. Imagine the air, utterly frigid, sharp, and brutal, thick with the subtle scent of damp earth, wood smoke, and the pervasive aroma of human apprehension, now mingled with the sour tang of humiliation and profound fear. The sounds were no longer the low murmur of resigned peasants. They included the low murmur of the gathered crowd, the sharp crack of the whip, the desperate cries of the condemned, and the uneasy silence that followed each public punishment. Frost glimmering on iron shackles, reflecting the pale morning light, underscored the stark brutality of the scene. The sheriff, or shire reeve, was the king's chief officer in a shire county, responsible for maintaining law and order, collecting royal taxes, and administering justice in the king's name. In practice, far from the king's direct oversight, the sheriff's power in a distant village could be vast and arbitrary, a direct, often brutal, manifestation of royal authority. His arrival was usually heralded by the ringing of a handbell. Listen to the low murmur of the gathered crowd, their voices a blend of morbid curiosity, condemnation, and perhaps a subtle, unspoken sympathy. Hear the sharp, authoritative voice of the sheriff, or his appointed executioner, pronouncing sentence, his words cutting through the silence with chilling finality. See the makeshift gallows, the whipping post, or the pillory, already erected in the center of the village square, stark and ominous against the morning sky, awaiting its grim purpose. Punishment is swift and public. The law is not to protect you, it is to control you. Justice was rarely dispensed in private. It was a public performance, designed to be seen, to be heard, to be felt by the entire community. The condemned, often stripped of their outer garments, their head bowed, would be paraded through the streets, or placed in the pillory, or bound to the whipping post. Their humiliation was public, deliberate, and designed to strip them of dignity, to make them an object lesson for all. The punishments were brutal. The stocks and pillory for public ridicule, floggings, public whippings with heavy leather thongs for petty theft or insubordination, mutilations, cutting off an ear or a hand for repeat offenders, and executions by hanging for grave crimes like murder or treason. These were not merely acts of retribution. They were powerful tools of social control, ensuring absolute obedience to the Lord's law and the king's authority. The psychological impact on the witnesses was immense. To see a neighbor, a friend, or even a relative subjected to public shame and physical pain or put to death was a crushing burden. It instilled a profound, pervasive fear of transgression, a constant awareness of the strict, unforgiving laws that governed their lives. They learned, implicitly, that the law existed not to safeguard their rights, but to maintain the power of their masters. Its story, written in every lash, whispered of profound control. The sheriff's justice was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One brutal punishment, one arbitrary decree at a time. The road of many dangers. The road of many dangers was a profound, chilling reality. A simple trip beyond the village risked bandits, wild animals, or worse, accusations of wandering unlawfully, transforming every journey into a perilous gamble with fate, and intensifying the pervasive fear of isolation that defined their bound existence. Imagine the air, crisp and biting, thick with the subtle scent of damp earth, wild forest. Now mingled with the sharp tang of unspoken peril. The sounds were no longer the low murmur of villagers. They included the distant howl of a wolf, the sharp snap of a twig, and the unnerving silence of an empty path. Mist drifting over fields at dawn, barely lifting, revealed a world teeming with hidden threats. For the medieval peasant, life was primarily lived within the confines of their village or manor. Travel was rare, arduous, and often dangerous. Journeys to a distant market, a pilgrimage to a local shrine, or a summons to the Lord's court were undertakings fraught with immense peril, both natural and human. Listen to the rhythmic crunch of your crude, straw-stuffed boots on the frozen ground, each step a testament to immense physical effort and profound caution. Hear the distant, mournful howl of a wolf from the deep forest, its chilling cry amplified by the stillness. A constant reminder of the predatory world that pressed in from all sides. See the narrow, winding path, barely visible through the morning mist, stretching into the unknown, its edges swallowed by dense thickets, offering ideal ambush points. A simple trip beyond the village risked bandits, wild animals, or worse, accusations of wandering unlawfully. Bandits, desperate men driven by hunger or greed, lurked in forests and along lonely stretches of road. Their attacks were swift, brutal, and often lethal, resulting in the loss of precious goods, severe injury, or death. Wild animals, wolves, bears, wild boars were a constant, tangible threat, particularly in winter when food was scarce. More insidiously, there was the risk of accusations of wandering unlawfully. As a serf, you were legally bound to your lord's land. To be caught wandering away from the manor without explicit permission was a serious offense, punishable by fines, imprisonment, or even branding. Any stranger encountered on the road, even if harmless, could report you, turning an innocent journey into a legal peril. The psychological impact was immense. The constant awareness of these manifold dangers, the knowledge that every step beyond the village's perceived safety could lead to profound misfortune, bred a deep-seated apprehension. It fostered a sense of confinement, reinforcing their bound status, amplifying the terror of the unknown. The cold of winter, the pervasive mud, the constant hunger. These hardships amplified the physical toll of travel. Your body ached, your mind was weary, but your focus remained absolute. The safe completion of your journey, the avoidance of any perils, a fragile hope guiding your every step. Its story, carved in every rutted track, whispered of constant peril. The road of many dangers was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure, one cautious step, one desperate prayer at a time. Tithes, rents, and empty pockets. Beyond the ubiquitous mud, the menacing roads, and the iron grip of their lord's ownership, medieval peasants faced a relentless, compounding economic reality. Tithes, rents, and more taxes were an inescapable burden. Your harvest shrinks with every hand that demands a share. Your lord, the church, the miller, the taxman, This was a chilling testament to institutionalized extraction, perpetually ensuring empty pockets, deepening the pervasive fear of scarcity, and transforming ceaseless toil into a grim, unyielding calculation of what little remained for personal survival. Imagine the air, thick with the earthy scent of the threshing floor, the pervasive aroma of wood smoke, and the subtle tang of human apprehension, now mingled with the cold weight of economic burden. The sounds were no longer the low murmur of resigned peasants. They included the rhythmic scrape of measures, the authoritative pronouncements of scribes, and the low murmurs of tired villagers. Distant church bells echoing through mist seemed to mark the mournful passage of dwindling resources. The peasant's life, from sunup to sundown, was a ceaseless cycle of arduous labor. They worked the land, tended animals, maintained their homes, and sought to feed their families. But the fruit of their labor was never entirely their own. A complex, often overlapping system of tithes, rents, and various taxes ensured that much of their hard-won bounty was extracted by multiple authorities, leaving them in perpetual debt. Listen to the rhythmic scrape of measures as the grain was carefully, meticulously portioned, its dry rustle, a sound of profound significance. Hear the authoritative voice of the Lord's reeve, or the priest's representative, his words precise, his gaze unwavering, as he directed the measuring of each farmer's yield. See the vast piles of grain, a golden promise of bread and beer, slowly being portioned out, with significant amounts separated for collection by different hands. Your harvest shrinks with every hand that demands a share. Your Lord, the church, the miller, the taxman. Firstly, the Lord demanded his rent. A substantial portion of the harvest paid for the right to cultivate his land. There were also numerous other fees. For using his mill, often a tenth of the grain milled, his oven, his forge. This was the foundation of feudal obligation, non-negotiable and absolute. Secondly, the church demanded its tithe, typically a tenth of all produce and earnings, intended to support the local priest, maintain the church, and fund charitable works. To fail to pay the tithe was a grave sin, risking divine wrath and eternal damnation, a powerful spiritual motivator for compliance. Thirdly, the taxman, representing the king or other higher authority, might demand additional levies for specific purposes: a war, a royal wedding, the maintenance of roads. These royal taxes were often irregular, but equally burdensome, imposed from a distant, unseen power. Empty pockets were the inevitable result. After all these extractions, the remaining portion, often tragically small, was what was left for your own family to survive on until the next harvest. It was a meager allowance, requiring careful rationing, constant vigilance against vermin, and the terrifying prospect of hunger in the lean months. Your own family ate only after all the powerful hands had taken their due. The psychological impact was immense. The constant awareness of these multiple extractions, the knowledge that much of their hard-won labor would be taken away, eroded mental fortitude. It bred a profound sense of powerlessness, a quiet despair that shaped every decision, every interaction. They toiled endlessly, yet remained perpetually on the edge of subsistence. Its story, written in every dwindling coin, whispered of relentless burden. Tithes, rents, and empty pockets was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One scraped coin, one diminished sack at a time. Sanctuary behind stone walls. Sanctuary behind stone walls was a profound, almost ethereal reality. The monastery rises in silence, a place where books glow in candlelight, a world that feels distant from yours, transforming a remote institution into a beacon of knowledge, spiritual solace, and, paradoxically, a subtle commentary on the harsh realities of secular life. Imagine the air, cool and still, thick with the subtle scent of old parchment, damp stone, and the lingering aroma of incense, mingling with the earthy tongue of beeswax candles. The sounds were no longer the low murmur of resigned peasants. They included the solemn chanting of monks, the soft rustle of turning pages, and the profound, almost eerie silence of contemplation. Wool cloaks drying by smoky hearths, here replaced by the rustle of monastic robes in hushed cloisters, creating an atmosphere of profound intellectual and spiritual activity. The monastery, typically a formidable complex of stone buildings, a church, cloisters, a scriptorium, dormitories, workshops, stood apart from the peasant villages, often on a secluded hill or in a sheltered valley. It was a self-sufficient entity, possessing its own lands, its own resources, its own distinct rhythm of life, governed by the Benedictine rule or similar monastic orders. Listen to the solemn chanting of monks, their voices low and resonant, echoing through the vast, cool nave of the abbey church as they performed their daily rounds of prayer. Hear the soft rustle of turning pages in the scriptorium, the meticulous scratch of a quill on vellum, preserving ancient texts. See the monks, their faces serene, their robes simple wool, moving with quiet purpose through their cloisters and chapels, embodying a life dedicated to God and learning. The monastery rises in silence, a place where books glow in candlelight, a world that feels distant from yours. The profound silence within the monastery walls was a stark contrast to the often noisy, chaotic world of the peasant. It was a silence dedicated to prayer, to study, to contemplation. And within this quietude, knowledge flourished. The scriptorium, the heart of the monastery's intellectual life, was where scribes painstakingly copied and preserved precious books, illuminating them with intricate art. Books glow in candlelight. In an age where literacy was rare and books were immensely valuable, the monastic libraries were vast repositories of knowledge. Sacred scriptures, classical texts, theological treatises, histories, these were illuminated by the flickering light of countless candles, their pages written on precious vellum, literally seeming to glow with an inner radiance. This was a profound intellectual warmth, a beacon of learning in a world often overshadowed by ignorance and the grim realities of peasant existence. The monastery's existence, while spiritual, was also a subtle commentary on the harsh realities of peasant life. It offered a refuge for those who chose the monastic path, an escape from the relentless toil, the gnawing hunger, the constant fear of the secular world. It provided charity, with monks often ladling out soup to the needy during famines. But its very existence underscored the stark contrast between their ordered, spiritually rich lives and the brutal existence of the common folk. The psychological impact was immense. The monastery was a powerful symbol of spiritual hope, of divine grace, of an alternative, more profound existence. It offered a glimpse into a world of knowledge and peace, however distant, however unattainable for most. Its story, etched in every glowing page, whispered of profound solace. Sanctuary behind stone walls was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. Illuminated by the distant, serene glow of monastic faith and the quiet promise of an entirely different world, where knowledge was carefully tended and the unseen rules of devotion were paramount. Part 4. Fear, Hunger, and Hard Realities. Winters of want were a pervasive, chilling reality. The cold bites through cloth as food runs thin. You ration each crumb, hoping the harvest will be kinder next year, transforming the season into a relentless battle for sheer existence, deepening the pervasive fear of famine, and leaving an indelible mark on both body and soul. Imagine the air inside your humble cottage, utterly frigid, thick with the earthy scent of mud brick, stale wood smoke, and the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by the profound chill of scarcity. The sounds were no longer the comforting crackle of a thriving fire. They included the low moans of hunger, the soft rustle of thin blankets, and the rhythmic creak of wooden floors protesting the cold. Distant bells echoing through mist seemed to mark the profound, widespread suffering. The medieval winter was always a period of hardship, but a winter of want, a famine, was a catastrophe. A series of poor harvests, often due to unseasonable rains, prolonged droughts, or early frosts, could quickly deplete the meager food reserves of the peasant population. With roads impassable due to snow and rivers frozen, trade for food was difficult, often impossible, isolating communities in their increasing privation. Listen to the low moans of hungry bellies, a persistent, uncomfortable rumble against the quiet morning sounds. Hear the soft rustle of thin blankets as family members shivered, trying to generate warmth from their own failing bodies. See the single coarse loaf of bread, now reduced to a few precious crumbs, being meticulously divided among the family, each morsel a profound, painful calculation for survival. The cold bites through cloth as food runs thin. The freezing temperatures, which could plunge far below zero, exacerbated the suffering of hunger. Bodies, weakened by chronic malnutrition, struggled desperately to generate and retain heat, consuming precious calories in a losing battle against hypothermia. The thin, worn woolen clothes, once a defense, now felt utterly insufficient against the penetrating cold, offering little protection against its lethal grip. You ration each crumb. Every bite, every morsel of food became precious beyond measure. The already meager rations were cut further, forcing agonizing choices. Who received how much? How long could this last? The mental effort of rationing, of denying one's own gnawing hunger for the sake of a child, was a profound daily torment, pushing the limits of human will, hoping the harvest will be kinder next year. This was the peasants' ultimate, desperate hope. Their survival, their future, hinged on the unpredictable bounty of the land. They would cling to this hope, nurturing it like a fragile ember, even as despair threatened to overwhelm them, knowing that if the next harvest failed, their suffering would only deepen, and their lives might be forfeit. The psychological impact was immense. The constant, gnawing hunger, the relentless cold, the profound fear of death, these eroded mental fortitude, making every task harder, every moment of rest a battle. Hope, a fragile commodity, was constantly challenged by the brutal reality of an unchanging, unforgiving world. Its story, written in every rationed crumb, whispered of constant struggle. Winters of Want was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure, one whispered hope, one dwindling crumb at a time. Battling fleas and filth. Battling fleas and filth was a pervasive, chilling reality. Even in discomfort, laughter and jokes lightened the burden of daily irritation, transforming a ceaseless struggle into a testament to human resilience, and underscoring the brutal realities of hygiene and parasitic infestation in a world utterly devoid of modern sanitation. Imagine the air inside your humble cottage, thick with wood smoke, damp earth, and the pervasive aromas of medieval life, now mingled with the subtle, sickening tang of human presence and profound discomfort. The sounds were no longer the low moans of hunger. They included the incessant scratching, the restless shifts of bodies, and the low murmurs of sleep-deprived individuals, sometimes punctuated by a sudden, wry chuckle. Candlelight on warm wooden tables, its uncertain glow, illuminated faces etched with weariness and a persistent, low-grade torment. For the vast majority of medieval peasants, infestations of fleas and lice were a universal, inescapable fact of life. These tiny, insidious parasites thrived in the unsanitary conditions, the crowded homes, the constant proximity of human and animal bodies, and the infrequent washing of both people and clothing. Effective pest control was non-existent. Listen to the incessant scratching, a rhythmic, almost unconscious, sound that punctuated the silence of the night and the work of the day, emanating from every member of the family. Hear the restless shifts of bodies on the straw bed, turning, twisting, seeking a fleeting moment of relief from the relentless irritation. See the worn woolen garments, perpetually itchy, their fibers a haven for countless tiny invaders, illuminated by the struggling firelight. Even in discomfort, laughter and jokes lighten the burden of daily irritation. The constant, maddening itching, the pervasive knowledge that one's body and bed were perpetually infested, these were profound indignities. Yet, paradoxically, they also became a source of shared humor, a way to cope with an inescapable reality. Jokes about the lively nature of their bedding, about the companions they shared their sleep with, or about ingenious, but often futile, methods of delousing provided a crucial release of tension. This laughter, however grim, was a profound act of resilience. It was a way to collectively acknowledge their suffering without succumbing to despair, to find levity in the most challenging of circumstances. It fostered a sense of camaraderie, an unspoken understanding that this particular burden was shared by all, creating a bond of collective endurance. The psychological impact was immense. The constant discomfort, the relentless itching, the pervasive knowledge that one's body was perpetually infested, these eroded mental fortitude, making every task harder, every moment of rest a battle. But the shared laughter, however brief, provided a vital antidote to despair, a momentary victory against the relentless assault. The presence of these parasites was more than just a nuisance. It was a constant source of potential disease, as fleas could also act as vectors for illnesses. Their omnipresence underscored the profound lack of hygiene, the brutal proximity of life and death, and the relentless realities of their existence. Its story, alive in every crawl and chuckle, whispered of an inescapable reality. Battling fleas and filth was a profound reality of medieval peasant life. A calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One shared joke, one frantic scratch at a time. Illness in the night. Illness in the night was a pervasive, chilling reality. When fever strikes, families surround the sick with prayers, herbs, and hope, rarely enough, transforming a fragile existence into a continuous, desperate battle against unseen, incomprehensible forces, deepening the profound fear of death and the terrifying mystery of their own fleeting lives. Imagine the air inside your humble cottage, thick with wood smoke, damp earth, and the pervasive aromas of medieval life, now mingled with the sour smell of sickness, fermented vinegar, and profound fear. The sounds were no longer the frantic scratching of parasites. They included the insistent, racking coughs, the low moans of fever, the quiet whimpers of pain, and the anxious murmurs of worried family members. Candlelight on worn wooden tables, its uncertain glow, illuminated faces etched with profound anxiety and grim determination. For the vast majority of medieval peasants, good health was a rare and fleeting luxury. Their lives were plagued by a constant barrage of ailments, both chronic and acute, born of their harsh living conditions, poor nutrition, lack of hygiene, and the complete absence of scientific understanding of disease. Wounds, however minor, easily became infected, and infections often turned systemic, proving lethal. Listen to the insistent, hacking coughs echoing through the hut, their sound raw and insistent, making breath a painful struggle for a feverish child or a weakened adult. Hear the low moans of feverish bodies, tossing restlessly on their straw beds, their skin slick with sweat, yet shivering uncontrollably. See the flushed faces, the dull, unfocused eyes, the small, frail bodies fighting a desperate, silent battle against an invisible enemy, their fragile lives hanging in the balance. When fever strikes, families surround the sick with prayers, herbs, and hope, rarely enough. Sickness struck with bewildering randomness, often in the dead of night, when help was impossible to find. The family, huddled close, would turn their collective energy towards the afflicted. Prayers, fervent and desperate, would be whispered for divine mercy, for healing, for an end to the pervasive pain. Herbs gathered by the village healer would be brewed into bitter teas or crushed into poultices, their efficacy limited, but their symbolic power immense. Hope, a fragile commodity, was their most vital medicine. But too often, these efforts were rarely enough. The illness would progress, overwhelming the weakened body, leading to agonizing suffering and frequently death. The lack of effective cures, the knowledge that recovery was often a matter of chance or divine whim, bred profound fear and helplessness. The bed, far from being a guarantee of safety, often became a place of profound suffering. The psychological impact was immense. The constant awareness of illness, the knowledge that a sudden fever or a persistent cough could swiftly claim a loved one, was a crushing burden. It amplified the sense of profound helplessness, deepening the despair, transforming the fragile sanctuary of the cottage into a crucible of suffering and fear. Its story, told in every racking cough, whispered of constant peril. Illness in the night was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure, one desperate prayer, one bitter herb at a time. The healer touch. The healer's touch was a profound repository of ancient wisdom. Old remedies and wise whispers reassure frightened hearts, transforming the abundant natural world into a vital, often life-saving pharmacy, a testament to practical ingenuity and an unwavering dedication to alleviating suffering amidst pervasive fear. Imagine the air inside a humble hut, thick with wood smoke, old herbs, the subtle tang of human effort and fear, mingled with the earthy scent of drying plants. The sounds were no longer the low moans of illness. They included the rhythmic grind of herbs in a mortar, the gentle murmur of instruction, and the hushed voices of those seeking solace. Candlelight on worn wooden tables, its uncertain glow illuminated small bundles of carefully preserved plants hanging from rafters, their power a quiet, often mysterious promise. The village healer, often an older woman, a midwife, or a wise person, was the repository of generations of accumulated knowledge about the natural world and the human body. Her wisdom was not derived from books or universities, but from keen observation, trial and error, and an intimate understanding of local plants and their properties. She was a respected, yet sometimes feared, figure, walking a fine line between accepted practice and accusations of witchcraft. Listen to the low rhythmic grind of dried herbs in a small stone mortar, their leaves slowly releasing their potent aromas. Hear the hushed murmurs of the healer, carefully dispensing advice, instructing on dosage, explaining the properties of a bitter tea for fever or a soothing poultice for a swelling. See her hands, rough and cracked, yet moving with a surprising delicacy, preparing a remedy, her eyes sharp and knowing, her face etched with profound weariness, but also unwavering compassion. Old remedies and wise whispers reassure frightened hearts. Her methods were a pragmatic blend of empiricism, folk magic, and spiritual belief. She knew an extensive range of medicinal herbs: willow bark for fever and pain, comfrey for bone breaks, chamomile for calm, garlic for infections. These were brewed into teas, crushed into poultices, or mixed with fat into salves. Mud, a ubiquitous resource, was often mixed with herbs to create cooling or drawing poultices for boils and wounds. But her remedies also included charms, whispered spells, and specific rituals. She understood the deep-seated fears that gripped people in this precarious world, and offered spiritual comfort alongside physical aid. A pouch of specific herbs might be worn close to the body, an incantation whispered over a sickbed, or a blessing offered for protection, reassuring frightened hearts. The effectiveness of her knowledge particularly against common ailments and injuries, was undeniable. She set broken bones, cleaned wounds, eased pain, and helped women through childbirth, often saving lives where no other aid was available. Her practical wisdom was a profound antidote to the pervasive ignorance, inspiring a quiet, desperate hope. The psychological impact was immense. For those suffering, for parents with a sick child, the healer offered a tangible sense of agency, a belief that something could be done, that their suffering was not entirely arbitrary. Her presence, her knowledge, her quiet confidence offered profound hope in a world devoid of it, her gentle touch a beacon in the dark. Its story, told in every wise whisper, spoke of profound care. The healer's touch was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One old remedy, one wise whisper at a time. The tolling bell of loss. As winter's lethal grip tightened relentlessly upon medieval towns, freezing rivers, silencing mills, and emptying granaries, the gnawing ache of hunger reached a fever pitch. Death, once an intimate, constant visitor, now became a pervasive, overwhelming presence, amplified by suffering. The tolling bell of loss was a chilling, pervasive reality. A slow toll fills the village air, and every heart knows someone has lost their fight against famine or disease, transforming the very voice of the community into a solemn, mournful lament for countless lost lives, perpetually echoing the immense, unquantifiable cost of medieval existence. Imagine the air, now thick with the palpable weight of grief, heavy with the mingled sense of fear, damp earth, and the subtle, sickening aroma of disease. The sounds were no longer the low moans from within homes. They included the hushed whispers of terror, the desperate cries of families, and the pervasive, mournful clang of the church bell. Distant bells echoing through mist seemed to mark the profound, widespread disaster. In medieval society, the church bell was the voice of the community. It marked the passage of the hours, summoned villagers to mass, celebrated births and weddings, and tolled for deaths. Its varied cadences were a familiar, comforting part of daily life, a sonic anchor in a world without clocks. But in times of famine and widespread illness, its purpose was tragically redefined, becoming almost singularly dedicated to the grim task of counting the fallen. Listen to the solitary, deep clang that would pierce the heavy silence. Then, after a long, agonizing pause, another, and another, slow, deliberate. Each sound vibrated through the very earth, penetrating the thick walls of your cottage, gripping your heart with a cold, unrelenting dread. The bell was a hammer blow, each strike a direct announcement of another life extinguished. A slow toll fills the village air, and every heart knows someone has lost their fight against famine or disease. The rhythm of the tolling was slow, mournful, designed to amplify the sense of loss, to mark the gravity of each death. The cold itself seemed to mute the bell's resonance, making it sound deeper, more drawn out, imbued with a profound, pervasive sorrow. The psychological impact was immense. The constant, audible reminder of death eroded hope, amplified despair, and intensified the sense of profound helplessness. The bell became inextricably linked with terror, its sound a harbinger of fresh sorrow, of lives extinguished without mercy, often not by plague alone, but by the slow, agonizing grip of hunger and cold, or the ravages of untreated disease. The village priest, or his designated bell ringer, bore the grim weight of his duty. He knew the specific rhythms and patterns of the tolls, the silent code that conveyed the nature of the warning. 3 swift, short tolls for a child, 9 for an adult. But in seasons of want, death was so constant, so overwhelming, that the bell often tolled almost continuously, its rhythm a grim counterpoint to the town's suffering. Grief is heavy, but shared mourning becomes a kind of healing. The communal aspect of the tolling, A shared understanding of its grim message forged a bond of collective sorrow. Even amidst despair, the act of hearing the bell, of knowing that others shared the burden of grief, offered a subtle, if poignant, form of solace, a quiet healing in the depths of winter. Its story, etched in every somber clang, whispered of profound loss. The tolling bell of loss was a profound reality of medieval peasant life. A calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One mournful chime, one shared tear at a time. Part 5, Nightfall, Reflection, and the Soft Glow of Hope. As the sun finally dipped below the horizon, casting long, bruised shadows across the medieval village, the day's relentless toil concluded, giving way to an uneasy, profound stillness. A door barred against the dark was a fundamental primal ritual. You close the wooden door, set the beam across it, and hope nothing moves in the night outside, transforming a simple act of securing a dwelling into a profound declaration of defense against the manifold terrors of the medieval night, underscoring the constant, pervasive fear of crime, danger, and unseen malevolent forces. Imagine the air inside the cramped, mud-daubed dwelling, thick with wood smoke, damp earth, and the pervasive aromas of medieval life, now mingled with the subtle tang of human apprehension. The sounds were no longer the low moans of tired bodies. They included the creak of heavy wooden doors, the metallic scrape of bolts, and the hushed whispers of families preparing for the darkness. Candlelight on worn wooden tables, its uncertain glow, cast dancing shadows that seemed to sway with the cabin's subtle shudder, illuminating a world utterly dependent on its fragile security. The medieval night was a vastly different realm from the ordered chaos of the day. Without widespread street lighting, the village plunged into near absolute darkness. Crime, particularly theft and assault, soared. Fires were a constant danger in densely packed dwellings, and malevolent spirits, mischievous fairies, and even witches were believed to roam more freely after dusk, their power waxing in the profound gloom. Listen to the rhythmic creak of heavy wooden doors, slowly, deliberately, being pulled shut, their ancient timbers groaning in protest. Hear the metallic scrape of an iron bolt being slid into place, the sharp thud of a stout wooden beam being wedged across the doorframe. A final, definitive punctuation mark against the encroaching darkness. See the dark, imposing form of the door, now firmly secured, its iron fixtures glinting faintly in the dim lamplight, a tangible barrier between the precarious safety of the home and the terrors of the outside. You close the wooden door, set the beam across it, and hope nothing moves in the night outside. This was the core of the ritual. The wooden door, however thick, the iron bolt, however sturdy, were fragile defenses against a determined thief or a desperate outlaw. But they were all you had. The act of securing them was a desperate prayer, a profound hope that these physical barriers would somehow deter the unseen dangers that lurked in the black. The fear of thieves, of burglars, of violent thugs was paramount. Without an organized police force for the common peasant, personal security rested squarely on the strength of one's home. But beyond human threats, the fear of malevolent spirits, of ghosts of the unquiet dead, also fueled the need for strong defenses. The dark was their domain, their power believed to wax strongest in the profound gloom. The psychological impact was immense. The constant awareness of the night's dangers, the knowledge that their home, their most precious sanctuary, was under siege from crime and unseen forces, fueled a deep-seated anxiety. The act of locking the door, however routine, became a profound ritual of protection, a desperate hope that wood and iron would prove sufficient against the pervasive terror. Your family, huddled close, shared this grim reality. Their sleep, often shallow and restless, was subconsciously attuned to the sounds from beyond the door, listening for any suspicious movement, any unfamiliar rustle, Any sign of intrusion, their vigilance a shared burden. Its story, written in every heavy thud, whispered of profound vulnerability. Locking the door against the dark was a profound reality of medieval peasant life. A calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One secured bolt, one hopeful prayer at a time. Stories by Firelight. As the medieval night deepened, enveloping the peasant hut in profound darkness and relentless cold, and the wooden door was barred against its manifold terrors, a different kind of warmth bloomed within. Shadows on wattle walls danced to the rhythm of this profound human need. Stories by Firelight. Legends, saints, heroes, tales bring warmth to cold hearts and long nights, transforming the oppressive gloom into a canvas for the imagination, binding the small family group in shared memory, wisdom, and a profound sense of connection to their ancestors and the spirit world. Imagine the air inside the cramped, mud-daubed dwelling, thick with wood smoke, damp earth, and the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by a palpable stillness. The sounds were no longer the low moans of tired bodies. They included the soft crackle of a dwindling fire, the low, hypnotic voice of a storyteller, and the gentle breathing of a family huddled close. Candlelight on worn wooden tables, its uncertain glow, cast dancing shadows that seemed to sway with the narrative, bringing ancient tales to life. The central hearth fire, carefully banked and kept low to conserve precious fuel, was the heart of the home. Its flickering orange and red light was the sole beacon against the overwhelming darkness that pressed in from all sides. Around this fragile glow, the family would gather, drawing close, their bodies pressed together, not just for warmth, but for the profound psychological comfort of proximity. Listen to the low, rhythmic voice of the storyteller, often an elder or the head of the household. Their words would weave through the smoky air, recounting ancient myths, tales of local saints, their miracles, and their pious lives. Stories of benevolent spirits that protected the home, or mischievous fairies that caused trouble. And crucially, tales of terrifying things that wander the woods. Wolves, bears, outlaws, and malevolent demons. Legends, saints, heroes. Tales bring warmth to cold hearts and long nights. The narratives were a blend of factual accounts of past events, local history, and mythic elements, often infused with religious or moral lessons. Stories of valiant saints provided inspiration and spiritual guidance. Legends of brave heroes overcoming adversity offered hope and models of courage. Tales of the unseen world, of spirits and fairies, served as warnings, reinforcing caution and respect for the natural and supernatural realms. The flickering firelight, casting its dancing shadows on the rough, uneven surfaces of the wattle and daub walls, became an integral part of the storytelling. Familiar objects, a hanging tool, a basket, a simple stool, would be transformed into monstrous shapes, into dancing figures, into spectral presences. These were the living shadows, their constant transformation, a source of both fascination and subtle, unsettling fear, amplifying the drama of the oral narratives. These stories served multiple vital functions. They were a powerful way to keep the mind from dwelling on the deadly cold, the gnawing hunger, and the pervasive fear of the night, offering a psychological escape. They taught the young about the history of their village, the customs of their ancestors, the moral lessons of their faith, and the practical knowledge needed for survival. The communal act of storytelling, performed in the intimate circle of firelight, was vital for social cohesion. It bound the family together, reinforcing their shared identity, their collective memory, their understanding of their place in the vast, often terrifying world. Its story, written in every whispered word, spoke of profound connection. Stories by firelight were a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure, one ancient tale, one shared shadow at a time. The night watchman call, as the medieval night deepened, enveloping the peasant hut in profound darkness and relentless cold, and the shadows danced on wattle walls to the rhythm of ancient stories. A vital, external reassurance would occasionally cut through the stillness. The night watchman's passing call was a crucial, haunting sound. His voice signals that the village remains safe under the cloak of darkness, transforming a lone cry into a profound declaration of communal vigilance. A fragile, audible thread of safety that defied the pervasive fear of crime, danger, and the silent terrors of the long night. Imagine the air inside the cramped, mud-daubed dwelling, thick with wood smoke, damp earth, and the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by a profound stillness. The sounds were no longer the low murmur of whispered stories. They included the soft crackle of a dwindling fire, the gentle breathing of a sleeping family, and then, faintly, undeniably, a human voice echoing from the distance. Distant bells echoing through mist seemed to mark the passage of the watch. The medieval night, particularly in towns and larger villages, was a perilous realm. Without widespread street lighting, crime, fire, and the threat of attack from outside elements, bandits, wild animals, were constant concerns. To maintain a semblance of order and provide security, a system of night watchmen was employed. These were typically local men, often drawn from the guild of night watchmen, armed with staffs, lanterns, or torches, and a deep understanding of the village's winding, treacherous streets. Listen to the soft crackle of the dwindling fire, its warmth fading, its light receding. Hear the gentle breathing of your sleeping family, their lives utterly dependent on the vigilance of those outside. And then, faintly, carried on the cold night air, the voice, a low, resonant cry, cutting through the profound stillness. All's well, and the second hour passes. Or good night, good people, and mind your fires. His voice signals that the village remains safe under the cloak of darkness. The watchman's call was more than just a practical report. It was a profound psychological anchor. It was a human voice, cutting through the vast, impersonal darkness. A beacon of vigilance that offered a fragile sense of order and communal safety. It dispelled the fear of isolation, reminding you that you were part of a larger, collective effort to survive the long night. The call served multiple functions. It marked the passage of the hours, ensuring that the nocturnal schedule of watches was maintained. It was a deterrent to criminals and a warning to would-be attackers, signifying that the village was guarded. And it was a direct reassurance to the sleeping populace, a comforting message that someone was awake, standing guard, actively pushing back against the dangers of the night. The psychological impact was immense. For a family huddled in the dark, fearful of thieves, of wolves, of malevolent spirits, the sound of the watchman's voice, however distant, brought a profound sense of relief. It affirmed their security, providing a crucial window for deeper, more settled sleep, knowing that someone else bore the burden of vigilance. The cold of the night, the profound darkness, these hardships were momentarily softened by the human voice, by the shared sense of community. Its story, echoing in every distant cry, whispered of unwavering vigilance. The night watchman's call was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure, one distant voice, one comforting declaration at a time. Part 5. Nightfall, Reflection, and the Soft Glow of Hope. As the medieval night deepened, swallowing the village in profound darkness and relentless cold, and the watchman's distant call offered a fragile thread of reassurance. Another, more primal sound often pierced the stillness. The winter wind's cry was a constant, chilling reality. Outside, danger roams. Inside, hope hums softly among the sparks of the fire, transforming the untamed wilderness into a realm of active menace, sharpening every fear and making the fragile sanctuary of the hut feel profoundly vulnerable, yet defiant against the unseen, untamed forces of nature. Imagine the air inside the cramped, mud-daubed dwelling, thick with wood smoke, damp earth, and the subtle tang of human presence, now permeated by a profound chill. The sounds were no longer the simple crackle of a dwindling fire. They included the soft breathing of a sleeping family, the rhythmic creak of wooden floors, and then, piercing all, the distant, eerie lament of the wind. Snow drifting against shuttered doors amplified the quiet terror within. The vast open fields surrounding the medieval village, usually a source of sustenance, transformed into a terrifying, unpatrolled buffer zone at night. Beyond them lay the deep, dark forests, teeming with predators whose hunger, sharpened by winter, grew bolder with the darkness. Wolves, bears, and other wild animals were a constant, pervasive threat, cunning, patient, and relentless. Listen to the low moan of the wind, a ceaseless, mournful presence sweeping across the snow-dusted fields. Hear the distant, eerie lament of the winter wind, a chorus of whistles and howls, rising and falling, a chilling symphony that seemed to come from all directions, weaving through the thin walls of the hut, penetrating the deep quiet of the night. See the vast, dark expanse of the plains outside, its features hidden by the snow and darkness, but its unseen dangers powerfully present. Outside, danger roams. Inside, hope hums softly among the sparks of the fire. The howling wind, though terrifying, served as a constant reminder of the active menace beyond the hut's fragile walls. It spoke of predators prowling, of bandits lurking, of unseen perils. But inside, contained by the warmth of the hearth and the proximity of family, a different sound emerged, the soft hum of hope. This was a quiet internal melody, a spiritual solace, a profound defiance against the external chaos. The sparks of the fire, dancing upwards, fleeting and ephemeral, were symbols of this hope. They were tiny, incandescent declarations of life, affirming that even in the face of overwhelming darkness and danger, warmth and light persisted. The low hum of hope, a psychological bulwark, allowed families to find moments of fragile peace, to drift into restless sleep, knowing that the battle against the night was being fought, both physically and spiritually. The psychological impact was immense. The wind's ceaseless cry amplified every fear, of unseen dangers lurking in the snowdrifts, of being cut off from help, of the hut's fragile structure eventually succumbing to the storm. But the internal hum of hope, nurtured by stories, prayers, and communal warmth, provided a crucial antidote to despair. Its story, sung in every gust, whispered of unyielding resilience. The winter wind's cry was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One hopeful hum, one dancing spark at a time. Dawn over the fields. Dawn over the fields was a moment of exquisite, fragile beauty, a herald of enduring hope. Cold air fills your lungs. But another day begins, and with it, another chance, transforming the vast, frozen landscape into a canvas of renewed promise, a testament to unwavering human resilience and the quiet triumph of survival against overwhelming odds. Imagine the air, crisp and invigorating, thick with the subtle scent of thawing earth, new growth, and the pervasive aroma of wood smoke, mingling with the fresh, clean tang of a new day. The sounds are no longer the distant howl of wolves. They include the tentative chirping of birds, the soft rustle of awakening animals, and the low murmur of sleepy voices. Mist drifting over fields at dawn, now visibly lifting, illuminates a world slowly, tentatively, coming back to life. You would be roused from a shallow, fitful sleep, perhaps by the cold itself, or by an internal clock, a primal awareness that the turning of the night was at hand. The hut would still be in near absolute darkness, but a subtle warmth, a hint of something new, would brush your cheek. Your breath, when exhaled, would plume in dense white clouds, a stark, visible affirmation of the cold, but now tinged with the promise of light. Listen to the soft crackle of a rekindled fire, its warmth slowly spreading, pushing back the pervasive chill. Hear the low murmur of sleepy voices, your family beginning to stir, their bodies stiff, but their spirits lifting with the promise of light. See the faint, bruised gray begin to paint the eastern sky, a subtle, ethereal blush that slowly, inexorably, pushed back the oppressive darkness, a silent, breathtaking spectacle. Cold air fills your lungs, but another day begins, and with it, another chance. As the first pale rays of the sun finally pierced the eastern sky, they would illuminate a world transformed. The fields, once frozen and shrouded in darkness, would now be bathed in a pale, tentative light, revealing the persistent mud of the tracks, the skeletal trees, and the promise of future growth. Each breath of cold air, once a painful reminder of winter's grip, was now invigorating, a vital affirmation of life. Another day begins, and with it, another chance. The relentless cycle of medieval peasant life was about to resume. The church bell would soon toll, summoning you to the fields, to the unending demands of feudal labor. The cold breakfast, the backbreaking toil, the constant hunger, the fear of the Lord's demands. These were the immutable facts of your existence, stretching endlessly into an unchanging future. But with each new dawn, there was also another chance. A chance for a better harvest, a chance for health, a chance for a small moment of joy, a chance for survival. This renewed hope, fragile yet fierce, was the driving force behind their unwavering resilience. Its story, painted in every blush of the sky, whispered of enduring hope. Dawn over the fields was a profound reality of medieval peasant life, a calm, immersive journey through a difficult world, charting the quiet strength of ordinary lives, forever tethered to the fierce, unyielding will to endure. One precious rosy dawn at a time, a profound secret of enduring warmth and hope. In a world where every sunrise was a hard-won victory, and every day a testament to unwavering human spirit. When the final candle sinks into its pool of warm wax, and the night folds gently around the quiet village, you begin to understand something the medieval world held close in every season of hardship. That hope was not a feeling, but a practice, a small daily choice carved carefully into moments that were often cold, uncertain, and heavier than most could bear alone. Long before comfort was common, before medicine eased fear, before laws softened life's sharpest edges, there were people who woke each day with nothing certain except the will to keep going. They rose with the frost, their breath clouding the dawn, their hands stiff from yesterday's labor. Still, they stepped forward, into fields, into workshops, into the long rhythm of survival, carrying an ember of determination that no storm could quite extinguish. In their world, hope lived quietly, in the warmth of a shared loaf of bread, in a whispered prayer before sunrise, in a neighbor's hand on a weary shoulder, in the soft glow of candles flickering inside cold stone chapels, where fear and faith met in equal measure. Their joys were small, but they mattered. A repaired roof that kept out the rain, a child's laughter echoing across winter fields, a story told by the hearth that reminded them they were not alone. And when sorrow came, as it often did, they grieved together. They stitched strength from company, found comfort in shared burdens, and rebuilt hope from the fragile threads left behind by loss. Maybe that is the lesson they leave us, that resilience doesn't roar. It doesn't blaze like fire. It glows softly, like a candle held against the dark. A reminder that even in the harshest times, we are capable of creating warmth, of choosing belief over fear, of leaning on one another when the world feels too heavy. So rest now. Let the village fade into quiet mist. Let the toll of distant bells drift into the night air. Let the cold wind wander the fields far from your door. You have walked gently in imagination, through their struggles and their small triumphs. And in doing so, you carry a piece of their quiet courage with you into sleep. Good night.